Blog Talk Radio.
Here at ACO Radio, American Communications Online, or any affiliated stations or websites are not responsible for what guests, hosts, or call-ins may say. All programming is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only.
And wonderful music. That was Lila. He's one of our wonderful artists, musicians in our ACE Folk Life and ACE Metaphysical Institute. Welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly on the planet. This is TJMRCT Radio, and we are a part of American Communications Online in the United States of America. But tonight we'll be helping ACE Metaphysical Institute, which is sponsored by ACO Association Community and UFO Association Organization with UAP Associates. Now tonight, we're very excited to introduce a friend of ours in social media. He's been a friend of mine several years on LinkedIn and apparently Facebook. And he's been on a couple of shows with me on another station. So we are deciding to give him a platform starting on Saturday nights to help us group all of our groups, because we have so many open source free social media in 2021, and he's willing to help us as a volunteer. He's helped many organizations in the past. He has a large resume if you'd like to look at it on LinkedIn. His name is Dr. Richard T. Knight. He goes by RT Knight, Dr. Knight. He's a known psychic and also a metaphysician. He's also a theologian and has at least as much experience as I do. So without a long resume, since you know you can find him on LinkedIn and Facebook, I'm going to ask him to come on board and introduce himself, and we will have a speaker at the last hour also to represent one of our organizations. Dr. R.T. Richard Knight. What do you want me to call you, Sir Knight?
Well, yeah, that would be fitting, but you can just call me Rick. Because you see, I'm a little old mead maker. Yes. I'm a little old mead maker and an economy-sized leprechaun. So, anyway, let's not get off the track too well, but anyway.
Yeah. Tell people what you'd like them to know. So, first of all, this will go on YouTube and, of course, iHeart, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, all those wonderful places that everybody listens to their own podcast. So keeping that in mind, there's no telling where you're going to wind up internationally. So speaking to the entire world, we're going to have you cast a large, wide net of topics out there and bring in a lot of our organizations and people that are known spirituality as a category are spiritual people. They don't like to say they're about politics or religion, but they like spirituality and metaphysics. And we're going to do spiritual science, and I know you know all about that, so that's why I'm very excited that you're going to be helping us with the ACE Metaphysical Institute. So where would you like to begin with you have a little rundown on your theosophy, your theologians, or metaphysics?
Sure.
And then you can tell them about your security in detail.
About all that, basically, I'll give you a 5-minute rundown. All right. First and foremost, you have to understand that I'm a being from a far, far away galaxy in a far, far away dimension, all right? And I am consciously aware of this simply because when I came into this earth as a born child, born with a veil, as the gypsies say, born with the third sight, okay, I was fully conscious of who I was and where I came from. This gave me a severe advantage because when the doctor slapped my ass, I grabbed his hand and told him, you do it again and I'll break it. Well, needless to say, infants don't usually speak, but this set the course in my life, basically. So anyway, I have doctorates in theology, religious science, divinity, and metaphysics. My doctorate in theology is represented through the University of Cairo, Coptic Seminarial Studies, created by Anuba Shenouda. May he rest in peace, as he's now passed over to the other side, who also ordained me into the Eastern Coptic Orthodox Church, the Holy See of the United States, as a bishop while he was under house arrest in Egypt. Okay, and that was around 84. Anyway, I have been an ordained minister with Universal Life Church since the age of 18. I received my first doctorate in divinity at the age of 20, my second doctorate, which was the one in theology, which was approximately age 32. And then in turn, I decided that I would create credentials to go along with my profession, since I have been a civil criminal investigator for over 45 years. I've also been a freelance consultant to the federal government. I have also worked both federal and state law enforcement for over 10 years. And I have been a freelance investigator practicing licensee in 26 states. I have also been a bounty hunter. I've also done personal protection as a bodyguard to judges and other superior people, or so they thought they were anyway, and all of this kind of thing. Spiritually aware of who I was and where I was coming from. So that meant that I was born with 14 gifts, all right, or 14 senses as they're called. You have 5 equivalents to your 5 natural gifts, which are sound, taste, sight, hearing, and all that good stuff, and touch. Of course, touch is very important. So anyway, you could classify me as being clairsentient. In other words, I am very aware of the presence of the spirits that are around me in the room, and I've been speaking and seeing them and beholding them emotionally and mentally and spiritually all of my life, which basically speaking you could say has been well over 60 years. All right? So anyway, because of that process, I've been enamored with the occult and spirituality and metaphysics and all things that are spiritual in their development of the self and in the development of the psyche and in the development of the spirituality of one's awareness. So I have been on the ascension path for thousands of years, okay? I'm a very old soul, and I actually belong to a race called the Ancient Ones, all right? They're very, very tall beings that are gold and shimmering light, and we do not take physical form normally because we're guardians of many, many races throughout creation. But anyway, getting down to it, this has also allowed me to watch metaphysics as a science and religion as a science transfer, transpose, and change languages at least 3 to 4 times during my lifetime. So in other words, we're all talking about the same stuff, only the languages and the names have been changed, basically to hide the not so innocent and actually produce more likely in our consciousness those who are innocent and those who are of a helping nature, who have big hearts and the basic interest of mankind within their heart and sovereignty. And so this is the space that I'm coming from. So understand that I have a universal awareness and consciousness, and therefore I am not limited strictly to the timeline of man. I am most proudly representing mankind in my human form and divine consciousness in my awareness. So that's basically me. So, where shall we start, TJ? Where the devil shall we start? Shall we just throw a coin into our mixing bowl and say, okay, here's where we start? TJ, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Okay. Regarding Ace Metaphysical Institute, I had a chance earlier to pull that up from 2016, but basically it was on Before It's News, and we had a bunch of members, and a lot of them had to do with pyramidology because we were coming out then with the pyramid spiritual groups. And Marta Thomas, which I talked to recently, and she's going to send us some people for tonight's weekly shows about pyramidology. But can you tell me if you know anything about pyramidology or pyramids so we can get that off the table as one of our many topics? Folks, we're casting a wide net to help everybody come out because so many of our friends and events, the ACO event managers that we market and promote events, this radio show was established with that in 2012, but in 2016 we Alienology, cryptology, but ufology, and Ace Metaphysical Institute, we came out helping Marta Thomas and the Global Pyramid Conference in Chicago in 2016. So I've talked to her and told her we would mention that, and we'll talk about Pyramid Spiritual Society of India, which she is very much involved with in the future. So some of their group speakers will come on. But tonight the platform is to build Ace Metaphysical Institute, ACO Association, UFO Association, and Dr. R.T. Knight with our international groups to help us share this wide topics. And I guess, Dr. Knight, if you can just, anything you know about pyramids and
All right.
and just anything from there metaphysically, and I will mute.
Okay. Basically, pyramidology comes and stems from a society that is very ancient in the universe, and they have pyramids upon Pleiades, or the Pleiades sisters, which are two planets, one that is purely intellectual and the other one is purely water-based or emotional. I happen to be great friends with both of those societies or both of those civilizations. Anyway, so pyramids were kind of borrowed from them in a manner of speaking, okay? So if you go back timeline-wise about 7,000 years, you're talking roughly of the society or civilization of Atlantis, okay? And Atlantis utilized pyramidology in regards to what you would call healing chambers, okay? And these were chambers that a person would go into that were basically kind of etheric, energetic, and very transparent as far as their actual size, dimension, and actually appearance. In other words, it was like a pyramid that was solidly there, but only etherically would you see it as far as actually a gold outline of the pyramid itself. So these chambers, basically, a person would go into the chamber, and they would sit down in the middle of the chamber, preferably, and basically they would focus upon anything that they needed to focus upon, whether it was a mental illness or a physical illness or an imbalance in their chakra system or an imbalance in their spirit in some way. And of course, the energy of the pyramid would basically sanctify their presence, and in turn, a direct beam of gold light would come down through the apex of the pyramid and basically heal them in all ways necessary. And these chambers were very effective, and the healing could take place in anywhere from, on our time dimension, anywhere from 3 minutes to half an hour most. Okay, and then the person would emerge, and of course, since they were interacting basically as a person within the civilization of Atlantis, all right, Atlanteans basically possessed 32 gifts, or in other words, 32 senses. So needless to say, they didn't have to eat, they didn't need to sleep, they didn't have to hear anything specifically, because they were aware to the extent that their awareness brought to them all the kinds of information that we would normally dispose upon ourselves through other outside sources. This was all internalized, okay, because they were directly in the flow of God, you could say. So anyway, they were telepaths, and they spoke to each other intuitively, and basically their society was focused on the well-being of their society, and yet on the technological side, in a device that was basically a very large diamond-shaped creation that was housed within a kind of an apex device. There was, in other words, a holding joint at the very apex of the diamond, and another holding joint at the very base of the diamond. And basically the diamond itself would rotate, and as it rotated in this device, it created a whirl or maelstrom of energy, and then in turn the person that was operating the device could basically mentally focus, and the device would instantaneously create anything physically that they so desired to have. Now remember, they don't have to eat, they don't have to sleep, okay? So that lets out a lot of things that we as humans, of course, experience. So anyway, it was very celestial in design. It was very creative in all kinds of different aspects. So in other words, if you wanted a tool to use, for example, whatever your arts or crafts may be, then of course it would create a tool for you. If you were a mentalist, which basically you would help people get over their issues mentally or spiritually to some degree, Then in turn you would create a harmonic device that would hit specific tunes